Near the end of the Civil War, farmer Josie Wales lived a quiet life in Missouri, far from all world trouble. One day, a pro-Union militia, the Redlegs, suddenly stormed into his farm. They killed his wife and his young son. They torched his home. Josie was badly wounded, but he somehow survived the attack. He buried his family, overcome with grief, and dug his charred revolver from the ashes. The fire of vengeance began to burn deep within his soul. A Confederate guerrilla unit passed by the area. Josie decided to join them, and from then on, he followed Captain Fletcher to fight the Union Army wherever they could find them. In the heat of war, the silent man turned into a brave soldier and honed his legendary marksmanship. The Union Army feared him as the frontier enforcer, but the South had already lost. As the war dragged on, Captain Fletcher had to lead the remaining men to surrender. A Southern senator promised them full amnesty. Josie refused to accept the surrender. He adamantly refused the captain's orders. At the surrender ceremony, 2 hidden Union heavy guns opened fire. The surrendering troops were killed. The Union never planned to let them survive. The so-called amnesty was just a trap. Fletcher was shocked and felt quite helpless. Just then, Josie charged in and grabbed a machine gun. He fought back instantly, taking down dozens of Union soldiers, but he was severely wounded in the chaos. Finally, with help from his wounded young comrade Jamie, he quietly managed to slip away from the battlefield. During the escape, Josie laid down 2 horses in a grassy field. They stayed low, dodging the enemy scouts. Two hours later, they reached a remote ferry and successfully managed to cross the river. Right then, more pursuers caught up to them. The pursuing leaders were the Red-Leg Captain Terrell, now serving the Union, and the former Confederate Captain, Fletcher. Faced with ruthless enemies closing in, Josie didn't flee. Instead, he held his ground firmly by the riverbank, and as the enemy pursuers reached the middle of the deep river, he grabbed his powerful Sharps 1874 Buffalo rifle, and using the long-range scope mounted on top, he calmly and steadily aimed his sights at the ferryboat out in the river. Josie aimed his rifle at the ferry. With a muffled shot, the cable snapped, and the unmoored ferry soon drifted downstream. The people on board panicked, and a traveling medicine salesman also fled. While they escaped, Josie treated Jamie's wound, but as the saying goes, it was one trouble after another. And as they finally tried to rest, 2 bounty hunters appeared. They held Josie at gunpoint, forcing him to drop his belt while trying to take him in alive. To get the reward, they wanted him alive, but Jamie, lying on the ground, pretended to be delirious and called one hunter father, claiming Josie had hidden gold on him, so one hunter approached. Just as he was about to check, the situation changed. In a split second, both of the greedy outlaws who risked it all for the bounty were already dead. Josie and Jamie set off again as heavy rain began to fall. They set up a tent in the woods, and Jamie thanked Josie deeply for saving his young wife. Josie just brushed it all off and went out to scout the surrounding area. But when he returned, Jamie was no longer breathing. Josie held back his grief, placed the body on a horse, and then steered it toward a nearby Union military camp.
Bluebillies will give you a better burial than I can, boy.
While they chased the horse, Josie slipped away unharmed. When the weather cleared, Josie met an old man in a hat. Dressed in a suit, he called himself Lone Watty, a Cherokee. He had even met the Interior Secretary. He had been civilized, but fought for the South in this war. Although the South lost, and he lost his horse, he refused to surrender, so Josie's arrival prompted him to burn his suit and wear his native clothes. He really wanted to convince Josie to ride on to Mexico to join up with all the remaining Confederate leaders. But Josie firmly insisted that he had unfinished business in Missouri. Guided by Lone Watty, Josie arrived at a trading post in the Creek territory. He wanted to buy a horse and some supplies. Just then, two violent gunmen were harassing a Navajo woman at the trading post, and Josie walked into the middle of a tense situation. One of them recognized him, held him at gunpoint, and ordered him to hand over both pistols.
I got him. I got me Josie Wales. Ease them pistols out.
Josie learned his bounty had increased to $5,000. But those two gunmen didn't know they'd underestimate Josie's skill. Two shots rang out. Both gunmen fell instantly, and Josie reunited with the Navajo woman and lone Waddy to resume their dangerous flight through the open range. After a long journey, the three reached a Texas town for supplies, but they ran into the fake medicine seller, whose loud cry exposed Josie's identity to others nearby.
Oh my God! It's Josie Wales!
Which caught the eye of 4 Union troops. When his warning failed, Josie acted, firing 3 shots in a row. Waddy fired his gun too, and all 4 of the Union soldiers died without even getting the chance to pull their triggers. The 2 of them quickly hopped on their horses and rode off. The Navajo woman, who could not keep up, intentionally blocked the Union cavalry to buy time for the 2 men. Deep in the desert, Waddy's keen hearing warned him the pursuers were still close. Josie determined to lure their relentless pursuers deep into the harsh desert. But to his surprise, the Navajo woman returned with vital supplies, and the 3 reunited to continue their long, dangerous journey. After more travel, they finally reached the dangerous Comanche territory. They saw some tire tracks. Some traders were holding folks hostage. They had hijacked a wagon train of settlers. The scene was pure chaos. In the confusion, the robbers found young Laura hiding in the wagon, and instantly overcome by lust, they prepared to assault her. This scene was seen by Josie, who was watching from the top of the hill. He reached for his gun, but the gang leader suddenly made them stop. He wanted to save Laura, to trade her to the Comanche chief, 10 Bears, for 20 horses. The gang had to back down and give up. Just then, a rock suddenly rolled down from the hillside. The bandits went to check, but in the confusion, poor Waddy was unfortunately captured by them. The bandits were moving the wagon train forward when a figure suddenly blocked their path with a white flag on a rifle. It was Josie, and the gang leader immediately sent 4 of his men out to check his true intentions.
Spit.
Just get off the horse.
Josie fired without saying a word. The 4 men were knocked off their horses. Josie charged into the caravan. Moving fast, he fired shots everywhere he went. The bandits had no way to resist. They were all shot down and killed. The final one tried to escape. The Navajo woman shot him dead, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But the whole event was unfortunately seen by 2 passing Comanches from a far distance. This left the rescued Laura still terrified. They moved on to a lonely, quiet town. With silver mines dried up, the town had long since decayed. There were no drinks left in the bar, so Josie silently brought a crate of whiskey from the wagon, and the delighted townsfolk cheered and immediately began to drink. Right then, a bounty hunter suddenly walked into the bar. He wanted to take Josie's head for a reward.
You're wanted, Wales.
I reckon I'm right popular. You a bounty hunter?
Man's got to do something for a living these days.
Dying ain't much of a living, boy. You know this isn't necessary.
Josie calmly warned him to leave. Moments later, he returned, and this time there were no words exchanged between them.
I had to come back.
I know.
Shots rang out, and Josie was faster. The bounty hunter was shot, and he flew right out of the bar. He died on the steps, and the companion fled away. He quickly rode away, and Josie led everyone forward to continue the journey. They passed by some Comanches on the way without ever having any major conflict. He just rode away. Guided by 2 men, Josie and his party finally reached an abandoned ranch. Laura's father once mined here, then died in the war. They bought the ranch, which was beautiful and surrounded by hills. The house was well stocked and quite ready. They all happily settled down, and the next day, they started working to fix up their new home. Suddenly, a bloodied Waddy arrived with some shocking news. The two townsmen were captured by Comanches. They were taken by Comanches, who sent word to Josie. They would come to meet Josie very early tomorrow. Everyone knew a big battle was coming. Josie immediately set up a defense, and he decided to use the sturdy house as a base. Preparing for a final fight, Josie rode alone into the Comanches' camp. He met the chief, Ten Bears, to talk. For a long time, the U.S. government lied, and the Comanche were pushed to the west. Josie wanted to seek peace instead. He promised them that when they migrated north in the cold spring, they could take his cattle for food, and he told them he would make sure the whole herd was ready for them to take right away. They could even go and mark all of the cattle for themselves. Josie noted that living was surely much harder than just dying for both of them today. He sought a real path for his tribe, and Ten Bears was moved by his sincerity. They made a pact for peace forever. Josie returned with the two men safe. This surprised and pleased them. They sang and danced to celebrate. Josie then branded the large herd of cattle for all of the many Comanche people. Laura, who liked him, asked him to dance. That night, they finally got together. Josie awoke from a bad nightmare. He realized he had stayed here for way too long. He said a sad goodbye to old Waddy the following morning before he left them. But he didn't get far from the creek. A rider suddenly appeared on horseback to block his way. His nemesis, Redleg Captain Terrell, waited. All of his men quickly rode up, and then they all began to slowly move in on him. Terrell mocked Josie for being alone. Rifles poked out from the wooden cabin walls, and the tension spiked immediately as they all got ready to shoot him dead. Fast, Josie drew out both his guns and fired first. Gunfire erupted, and the scene turned into pure chaos. Josie was struck and fell from his horse. He propped himself up, sat on the ground, and kept firing, as members of the Redlegs were all hit. Inside the cabin, Laura's grandmother helped reload the guns, while the others helped as well. They kept firing through a window, but during this time, a Redleg climbed onto the roof. He leaped into the cabin, but Josie had already anticipated this and warned them about it. Though terrified, Laura stayed ahead and fired off a shot. Soon, the Redlegs were almost wiped out. Terrell tried to ride off, so Josie reached for his gun. But his gun was empty. Ignoring the pain, he mounted his horse to give chase. Outside an abandoned cabin in town, Josie finally cornered that wounded man. It was Terrell who also dropped his gun. Enemies meeting are always fierce. Josie held his guns and pulled the triggers, but couldn't fire a shot. He switched pistols, but they still would not fire. Terrell looked livid, and seeing Jose close in, he suddenly drew out his sword. After one final struggle, Terrell finally died by his own sword. Josie walked into the bar, and the air inside became tense. The Texas Rangers were in the bar, searching for the outlaw Jose. Fletcher was with them, and a patron greeted Josie warmly, acting like he was just a regular guy, not a killer at all. They called him Wilson, and Fletcher watched all of this unfold carefully. He never said a word and did not reveal Josie's true identity. Josie knew the people in the bar had fabricated a story. They lied that they saw a gunfight while in Mexico. Josie fought 5 alone. After killing 3, he was shot dead. The Texas Rangers did not doubt it, and after getting their signed testimonies, they left. Outside the bar, Fletcher told Josie he did not believe that he was dead. He truly didn't believe 5 gunmen could kill Josie. After a short chat, both men decided to let it all go.
What do you say, Mr. Wilson?
I reckon so. I guess we all died a little in that damn war.
Bloody boots. With dust on his boots, Jose finally mounted his horse and rode off into the distance, and the film ended.